Thanks for clicking on this video. I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the story, consider subscribing and feel free to like the video or drop a comment below. It really helps the algorithm recommend these videos to you and to others who might enjoy them too. Either way, thanks for giving it a chance, and I hope it pulls you in. I have thought a lot about what it means to be chosen. We use that word casually, toss it around like it does not carry weight. Chosen for a job, chosen for a team, chosen by someone who loves you. But there is another side to that word, a darker meaning we do not like to think about. If some people are chosen, then other people are not. Other people are left behind, excluded, deemed unworthy of whatever gift or burden or transformation is being offered. I know what it feels like to be unchosen. I know what it feels like to watch everyone around you receive something you cannot have, to be locked out of a door you did not even know existed until it closed in your face. My name is Wesley Crane, and I'm going to tell you about the day everyone in Holbrook received an alert on their phones. Everyone except me. It was a Saturday afternoon in late October, one of those grey autumn days where the sky is the colour of old concrete and the air smells like dead leaves and coming rain. I was sitting in a coffee shop called Brewers on Main Street, working on my laptop, trying to finish a logo design for a client who wanted everything yesterday. The shop was crowded with the usual weekend crowd. College students hunched over textbooks, young families with strollers taking up too much space, older folks reading actual physical newspapers like it was still 1995. The espresso machine hissed and gurgled. Someone's playlist of acoustic covers played softly over the speakers, and I was lost in my work, adjusting colors and fonts and trying to make something that looked professional without being boring. It was around 3 in the afternoon when every phone in the coffee shop went off at the same time. I have heard emergency alerts before. That harsh tone that cuts through everything. That sound designed to make you pay attention whether you want to or not. But I had never heard it like this, never experienced that moment of dozens of phones all screaming the same alarm in perfect unison. It was like the room itself was buzzing, vibrating with that awful tone. Everyone reached for their phones. I watched hands moving all around me, screens lighting up, faces tilting down to read whatever message had arrived with such urgency. The woman at the table next to me, the barista behind the counter, the old man with his newspaper, the mother trying to quiet her fussy toddler, all of them reading the same thing. I pulled out my own phone, expecting to see the same alert on my screen. Nothing. My screen showed my homepage, my apps, my background photo of a mountain I had hiked last summer. No notification, no alert, no emergency message demanding my attention. I swiped down to check my notification center. Empty. I went into my settings to make sure emergency alerts were enabled. They were, had always been, every option turned on, just like the phone came out of the box. I refreshed everything, closed apps, even restarted the phone entirely. Still nothing. The woman at the next table was still looking at her phone. Her brow furrowed slightly, like she was trying to understand what she was reading. I leaned toward her, trying to keep my voice casual. "Excuse me, what does the alert say? I did not get it on my phone." She looked up at me, and something in her expression shifted. Just for a moment, just a flicker. But I saw it. A quick assessment, a judgment, and then something that might have been pity. "It is a storm warning," she said, and turned her phone so I could see the screen. "Severe storm warning for Holbrook County. Seek shelter immediately. Do not go outside after 5 this evening. Await further instructions." I read it twice, frowning. I looked out the window at the grey sky. Overcast, sure, but nothing that looked like a severe storm. No darkness on the horizon, no wind bending the trees, no rain spattering the glass. Just a normal cloudy autumn day. "That seems strange," I said. "The weather does not look that bad." The woman smiled, but it was not a reassuring smile. It was the kind of smile you give someone who does not understand something obvious. The kind of smile that contains secrets. "I'm sure it will be fine," she said, and turned back to her phone. I asked to see other people's phones, moving from table to table like some kind of paranoid lunatic. Everyone had received the same message, word for word, at exactly the same moment. I checked online news sites, weather services, official emergency management pages. Nothing. No mention of any severe storm, no warnings from any recognized authority, no explanation for why every phone in Holbrook had suddenly screamed the same alarm. The alert did not appear to have come from anywhere official, but everyone had received it. Everyone except me. I started to notice something else then, something subtle that I might have missed if I had not been paying attention. The people in the coffee shop were looking at each other differently. Little glances exchanged across tables, small nods of acknowledgement, faint smiles that seemed to carry meaning I could not decipher. They looked like people who shared a secret, people who had all received an invitation to the same party and were silently confirming their attendance. When they looked at me, the expression was different. That same flicker I had seen in the woman's eyes. Curiosity, assessment, and something uncomfortably close to pity. A man at the counter met my eyes for a moment, then looked away quickly, like he had seen something he did not want to see. Like looking at me made him uncomfortable. I told myself I was being paranoid. I was the only person who had not received an alert, and I was feeling left out, excluded, and my brain was inventing patterns to explain the feeling. People were not really treating me differently. I was imagining things, but the feeling would not go away. Something had changed in that room when the alerts went off, and I was on the wrong side of whatever divide had been created. I decided to leave. I packed up my laptop, shoved it into my bag, and headed for the door. As I passed the counter, the barista called out to me, "You should get home before 5. I stopped and turned. She was a young woman, maybe 22, with dyed purple hair and a nose ring. I had seen her working here dozens of times, had exchanged small talk about the weather and the coffee and nothing in particular. But her voice now was oddly flat, her expression strangely neutral. "Why?" I asked. "What is actually happening at 5? She smiled that same secret smile everyone else had been wearing. "The storm is coming." "There is no storm. I checked. The weather service is not reporting anything. You should get home before 5, she repeated, and turned away to wipe down the espresso machine. I left the coffee shop feeling more unsettled than I wanted to admit. Outside, Holbrook looked normal on the surface, but felt deeply wrong underneath. People were going about their business, walking on sidewalks, driving cars, doing all the ordinary things people do on a Saturday afternoon. But there was an undercurrent of purpose to their movements, a sense of preparation. Everyone seemed to be heading somewhere specific, getting ready for something. I saw families loading bags into cars. I saw people closing storm shutters on houses that had probably never used them. I saw shops putting up closed signs in windows and locking their doors, even though it was only mid-afternoon on a weekend. The whole town was battening down hatches for a storm that did not exist. I stopped a man on the street, a middle-aged guy in a flannel jacket who looked like he might give me a straight answer. "Excuse me, can you tell me what is going on? Everyone got this alert about a storm, but I did not receive it, and I cannot find any information about what is actually happening." The man looked at my face, then pulled out his phone and glanced at it, then looked back at me. His expression went through the same progression I had seen in the coffee shop. Assessment, understanding, pity. "You did not get the alert," he said. Not a question. No, I did not. My phone just did not receive it. He shook his head slowly, and there was genuine sadness in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said, and walked away before I could ask anything else. I drove home to my small apartment on the edge of town, my mind racing with possibilities and explanations and fears I could not quite name. The drive usually took 10 minutes, but it felt like an hour. Every traffic light an obstacle, every other car on the road a reminder that everyone else knew something I did not. Once inside, I started making calls. I tried my mother first. The phone rang 5 times, then 6, then went to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I tried my sister, who usually picked up on the first ring. Voicemail. My best friend from college, a guy I had known for 10 years who always answered my calls even at inconvenient times. Voicemail. A coworker I sometimes got drinks with after work. Voicemail. No one was picking up. Not a single person. I sent texts to everyone I could think of, asking about the alert, asking what was happening, asking if anyone could please just tell me what was going on. I watched the little delivered notifications appear under each message, then waited for responses that were slow to come. When the replies finally started arriving, they were strange, evasive, wrong in ways I could not quite articulate. My sister wrote back, "Just stay inside tonight. It will be okay." I replied immediately, "What do you mean? What is happening? Why will it be okay?" Her response, after a long delay, "We will see you on the other side." The other side. What did that mean? The other side of what? My friend wrote, "Do not worry about it. Everything is going to be fine. Better than fine." I typed back, "How do you know? What is the storm? Why did I not get the alert?" He never responded. My mother's text made my blood run cold. I stared at the words on the screen for a long time before I could fully process them. "I love you, Wesley. I am sorry you were not chosen." Chosen. The word stuck in my mind like a splinter, sharp and painful and impossible to ignore. What did it mean to be chosen? Chosen for what? And why had I been excluded? I spent the next hour searching desperately for information. I checked every news site I could think of. local and national and international. Nothing about a storm in Holbrook County. I checked weather radar, satellite imagery, meteorological forecasts, clear skies, mild temperatures, no precipitation expected. I called the county emergency management office and got a busy signal. I called the police non-emergency line and no one picked up. I called the local news station and got a recorded message saying they were closed for the day, which made no sense for a Saturday afternoon when they should have been preparing for the evening broadcast. Everything was shutting down. Everyone was preparing for something. And I had no idea what it was or why I had been left out of it. Around 4:30, I gave up trying to find answers and just sat by my window, watching the sky. The grey clouds had thickened, darkened, but not in a normal way. The light filtering through them had taken on a yellowish tinge, a sickly colour that made everything outside look slightly wrong, like a photograph with the colour balance shifted towards something unnatural. At exactly 5 o'clock, the wind began, but it was not normal wind. Normal wind gusts and ebbs, swirls and shifts direction, comes and goes in patterns you can almost predict. This wind just increased, steadily and constantly, a pressure that built and built without ever letting up. The trees outside my window bent under it, leaves tearing away in streams. But the wind never fluctuated, never wavered. It was like standing in front of a fan that someone kept turning up, higher and higher, without ever reaching maximum. Then came the sound, low at first, so low I thought I was imagining it, thought it was just the wind making noise as it pushed against the buildings. But it grew, and as it grew, it became something else, something almost like music, something almost like voices, a harmonic resonance that seemed to come from everywhere at once, from the sky and the ground and the air itself. I could not make out words, could not identify a melody, but there was meaning in the sound, intention. It was trying to communicate something, trying to convey something beyond language, and I could feel it pulling at me. An urge rose in my chest, irrational and overwhelming, to go outside, to stand in the wind and let the sound wash over me, to open myself to whatever was being offered. I moved toward my front door, my hand reaching for the knob. Then I stopped myself. The alert had said not to go outside after 5. Whatever this was, whatever was happening, I was not supposed to be part of it. I went back to the window and watched instead. My neighbors were coming outside, not running for shelter, not hiding from the wind and the sound, not reacting the way people should react to something so strange and overwhelming. They walked out of their front doors calmly, peacefully, as if they had been waiting for this moment all their lives. They stood on their lawns and their porches and in the middle of the street, faces turned up toward the strange yellow sky, expressions of absolute serenity on their features. Mrs. Pruitt, the elderly widow who lived 3 houses down and always complained about my music being too loud, stood in her front yard with her arms spread wide, smiling like I had never seen her smile before. The young couple next door stood together, holding hands, their eyes closed, swaying slightly in the impossible wind. The father from across the street held his young daughter on his shoulders, both of them laughing with pure joy as the sound washed over them. Everyone who had received the alert was outside, bathing in the storm, receiving whatever it was offering. I wanted to join them. The urge was almost unbearable, a need that went beyond rational thought. I went to my front door and grabbed the knob and tried to turn it. The door would not open. Not locked, not stuck. The knob turned freely, but the door itself would not move. It was like something was holding it shut from the outside, some force preventing me from leaving. I pulled harder, threw my weight against it, slammed my shoulder into the wood until it bruised. Nothing. The door would not budge. I ran to the back door. Same thing. The windows would not open either, would not even crack, sealed shut by whatever force was keeping me inside. I was trapped, locked in my own apartment while everyone else in Holbrook stood in the storm and received whatever gift was being given. I was not being protected from the storm. I was being excluded from it. The alert had not been a warning. It had been an invitation, and I had not been invited. I spent hours at my window, watching as my neighbors stood in the wind and the sound. The storm did not stop, did not weaken, just maintained that steady, impossible pressure for hour after hour. The people outside did not move, did not waver, did not seem to feel any discomfort. They just stood there, receiving whatever the storm was pouring into them. As midnight approached, I noticed some of them beginning to glow. Faint at first, a soft luminescence that I tried to convince myself was a trick of the strange light from the sky. But it grew stronger, more obvious, until I could clearly see that the people outside were emanating light from within. Not reflected light, not anything external. Light that came from inside them, from whatever was filling them up, from whatever they were becoming. Around midnight, things began to shift. The people outside started moving again, but not like they had moved before. Their movements were more fluid, more graceful, more synchronized with each other. They turned toward one another and embraced, families reuniting, neighbors greeting neighbors, everyone connected in ways I could not understand. They seemed to communicate without speaking, seemed to share thoughts or feelings or something beyond both, a connection that transcended ordinary human interaction. Then, one by one, they turned toward my apartment. Dozens of faces, glowing faintly from within, looking at my windows, looking at me. Their expressions were not angry, not hostile, not threatening. They looked sad. They looked like they pitied me, like they were sorry for what I was and what I would never become. My phone buzzed. A text from my mother. "We are leaving soon. I wish you could come with us. The alert chose who was ready. You were not ready. I am sorry." I typed back frantically, fingers trembling. "What do you mean? Where are you going? What is happening to you?" Her response came after a long pause. "Somewhere better. Somewhere we have been promised. You will have to stay here. Someone has to stay behind. That is how it works." I stared at the words, trying to make them make sense. Someone has to stay behind. That is how it works. I was not excluded because I was unworthy. I was excluded because I was necessary. Someone had to remain, had to be the one who did not go, had to stay in the world that everyone else was leaving. I was the sacrifice. As the first grey light of dawn appeared on the horizon, the storm began to fade. The wind died down gradually, that constant pressure finally easing. The sound faded into silence, those almost voices speaking their last words and then going quiet. The strange yellow light dissipated, replaced by the ordinary grey of an autumn morning. The people outside began to move, not back to their homes, not back to their normal lives. They walked away, calmly and peacefully, in groups and pairs and families. They walked toward the edge of town, toward some destination I could not see, toward whatever had been promised to them. They did not look back. My mother walked past my window, arm in arm with my sister, both of them glowing with that soft inner light. I pounded on the glass, screamed their names, begged them to stop, to wait, to take me with them. My mother glanced toward my window, and for just a moment, our eyes met. She smiled sadly, raised her hand in a small wave, and then turned away and kept walking. I watched her disappear down the street with everyone else, and I knew I would never see her again. When full daylight arrived, I found I could open my doors again. I stepped outside into a silent, empty world. The streets were deserted. Cars sat in driveways. Doors of houses hung open. But there were no people anywhere. The whole town of Holbrook, everyone who had received that alert, every person who had been chosen was gone. They had walked away in the night, and they were not coming back. I spent hours searching. I walked through every street in Holbrook, my footsteps echoing off empty buildings, my voice growing hoarse from shouting names that no one answered. I checked every house I could get into, pushing open unlocked doors, climbing through windows that had been left ajar, all of them empty, all of them showing the same signs of sudden, peaceful departure. In one house, I found breakfast still on the table, eggs and toast and orange juice, the food half eaten, the juice still cold. The family had been in the middle of a meal when the storm came, and they had simply stood up and walked outside, leaving everything behind. I found a child's drawing on the refrigerator, stick figures of a family standing under a yellow sun. The child who drew it was gone now, following that same sun to wherever it led. In another house, I found a television still playing to an empty living room, a football game, the crowd cheering for a team whose fans had all disappeared. I turned it off, and the silence that followed was worse than any sound. Everywhere I looked, I found the same story. Food sitting on kitchen tables, half-eaten meals abandoned mid-bite, televisions playing to empty rooms, computers displaying half-finished emails and documents that would never be completed, cars sitting in driveways with keys still in the ignition, dogs wandering confused through yards, barking at nothing, cats sitting in windows, meowing for owners who would never return to feed them. I collected the pets I found, brought them food and water, tried to give them some comfort in the absence of the humans they had loved. It gave me something to do, something besides wandering and trying not to scream. I found no bodies, no signs of violence or struggle, no evidence of where everyone had gone or what had happened to them. They had simply left, all at once, following the storm to wherever it led them, like they had been waiting their whole lives for exactly this moment. I checked my phone, hoping desperately for something, anything, a text, a call, some communication from the outside world. There was one new notification, not a text, Not a call, an alert. I opened it with trembling hands. Thank you for your sacrifice. Someone must remain. The cycle will continue. Await the next storm. I read the message over and over, trying to understand what it meant. I had not been excluded because I was unworthy or unprepared. I had been excluded because the system, whatever it was, required someone to stay behind. Someone had to remain in the empty world, had to witness, had to wait. That was my role. That was my purpose. I was not the one who was rejected. I was the one who was required. Days passed, then weeks. I lost track of time in the empty town, alone with my thoughts and my grief and my endless questions. I found no other survivors anywhere. I drove to neighboring towns and found them empty too. I drove to the city 50 miles away and found it abandoned like everywhere else. Everyone had received an alert. Everyone had been chosen. Everyone had left. Except the ones like me, scattered across the world, one per town or city or region, the necessary sacrifices who had to stay behind so that everyone else could go. The power stayed on. The water kept running. The infrastructure maintained itself as if people still existed to need it. I lived in the empty town, eating food from abandoned stores, sleeping in my own bed, waiting for something I did not understand. One evening, about 6 weeks after the first storm, I saw clouds building on the horizon. Not normal clouds, clouds with that same yellowish tinge, that same unnatural quality. The air felt different, charged with something I recognized now, something I had been waiting for without knowing I was waiting. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen, and my heart nearly stopped. Severe storm warning for Holbrook County. Seek shelter immediately. Do not go outside after 5 this evening. Await further instructions. The same message, word for word. The same alert that everyone else had received 6 weeks ago. The alert I had not been given. Until now. I stood in my living room, phone in hand, reading the words over and over. The cycle was continuing, just like the last message had said. And this time, I had been chosen. I did not hesitate. I did not question. I had spent 6 weeks alone, in an empty world, grieving for everyone I had lost, wondering what they had become and where they had gone. I had spent 6 weeks being the one left behind, the sacrifice, the witness to absence. I did not want to be left behind again. At 5 o'clock, I walked outside. The wind was already rising, that same steady, impossible pressure I remembered from before. The sound was beginning, those almost voices, that almost music, carrying meaning I could almost understand. I stood in my front yard, face turned up to the strange yellow sky. I closed my eyes and spread my arms wide, just like Mrs. Pruitt had done, just like all the others. I let the wind wash over me, let the sound fill my ears and my mind and my soul. I felt it then, what they had all felt, what they had all received. It was not frightening. It was not painful. It was like being filled with light, like understanding something I had been trying to understand my whole life, like finally coming home after being lost for so long. I understood now why everyone who received the first alert had smiled that strange smile. why they had looked at me with pity rather than fear. They had known what was coming, had known what they were being given, had known that I would have to wait and suffer and wonder before I could join them. But the waiting was over now. The storm filled me with something vast and strange and beautiful. I felt myself beginning to change, beginning to become whatever everyone else had become. I felt the light kindling inside me, felt the connection opening to all the others who had gone before, felt myself being welcomed into something I could not describe, but could finally feel. Somewhere better, my mother had said. Somewhere we have been promised. I was going there now. I was finally going to find out where everyone had gone. The last thing I felt before I stopped being Wesley Crane was gratitude. Gratitude for being chosen finally. Gratitude for not being left behind again. And something else underneath the gratitude. A small, quiet thought that I pushed away as the transformation completed and I became something new. I wondered who would be left behind this time. I wondered who would be the next sacrifice. I wondered if they would wait as long as I did before the storm came back for them. Then the thought faded, and I faded with it, and I went wherever everyone else had gone, and I did not have to wonder anymore.